What's up, Liron here. Thank you for joining me in my very first podcast episode. I'm super excited. This is something I wanted to start a while back, and it took me some time and preparation, and now I'm finally ready to get going with this. Some of you may know me from my YouTube channel, or maybe from my books. Now, it doesn't matter where you know me from. I'm gonna make this episode kind of an introduction into my podcast, why I started with this, what you can expect from the podcast, what it's going to be all about. And I'm really, really excited because this is something that as soon as I get to just talk freely, I really enjoy this even more than videos, I have to say, because I feel like there's less of a layer to worry about, one less layer to worry about. So anyway, let's get started and talk a bit about why I started this podcast. So basically, in my YouTube videos, I do these full process painting and drawing and sketching videos, and these videos can be quite long. So you'll have videos showing the entire creation process, and it's going to be maybe an hour long or 50 minutes long or 40 minutes long. And what happens is I'm not going to spend the entire hour just talking about now I do this, now I do that, I'm mixing the paint, I'm blah blah blah. I kind of always go on side tangents and kind of stream of consciousness kind of talks, and I really enjoy those, and I see that the audience enjoys it as well. So I just thought, why wouldn't I just make a place that's dedicated for that, so that you can enjoy this sort of unfiltered talk? And this will have an influence on the podcast structure, will I talk about in a moment. So basically, I wanted a place to talk about all of these kinds of things. So I will talk about the exact topics in a moment. I just want to mention that Gary Vaynerchuk, which is an entrepreneur I really, really love and follow, and have learned so much from, also recommends making a podcast. And I got the idea way before I even heard of him, but after listening to more of his stuff, I knew that this is something that's really important for me to do personally. So anyway, what this podcast is going to be all about. So I want to use this platform, which is audio, there's no video, to talk about things that don't require you to see anything, because this is what I love about podcasts. You can just listen as you cook, or as you clean up the house, or as you just drive in the car. So I want to talk about topics like art in general, and creativity, and productivity, and the business of art, and many, many things that I feel like are currently kind of in the white space and aren't discussed enough. And so I feel like not a lot of people talk about it, and I'm not going to say that I'm necessarily the biggest expert on these topics, but I am kind of building my own business around my art. So at the very least, you get a perspective of someone who's actually doing this and living this on a day-to-day basis, and learning how to actually make money and large amounts of money from their art. Okay, so I'm still on my journey. This is something I really want to share as I go along, but I think I have a lot of useful insights. And also, I think that as an artist, I'm kind of disproportionately gifted in some other skills that most artists don't have, meaning I'm very minded to creating products and actually selling stuff. I really care about the whole marketing and branding and selling aspect, which many artists just hate or don't enjoy, and I naturally enjoy these things. So I think this unique perspective will be really good and helpful. Okay, now this podcast is going to be structured in a very specific way, because I just want it to be really easy to follow and fun, and we'll have this sort of a structure to follow. But within this structure, I want to allow myself a lot of freedom. So let me talk a bit about how this is going to be structured. So first, we have the intro segment, in which we are at the moment. Okay, so this is basically me introducing what we'll talk about in this specific episode, and things like this. Then I'm gonna have the free flow segment, in which I just have a few talking points, and I talk as freely as possible about many different subjects that are connected to the main topic of the episode. So for example, if I talk about where to find inspiration, or how to make your art into a sort of income stream, or how to create and package a product, or things like this, or maybe it's just a vlog kind of explaining how I feel at the moment and what I've been working on. So this is the free flow segment. Then I want to have a bit of a more practical segment, which will be shorter. In this segment, we'll talk about some actual things we can learn from our talk, so that you actually maybe have something practical to continue with. I don't necessarily want this podcast to be a how-to, but I do want it to be practical in many senses. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Then we're gonna have the artist corner, and in this segment, I'm just gonna introduce you to one artist that I really admire or came to appreciate. And the thing with this this sort of show or podcast is that I wanted to relate to as many artists as possible, not just painters or people who like to sketch and draw like me, but also musicians and composers and writers and anything that has like film producers, anything that has sort of the artistic or creative thing to it, creative flair. And so the artists I'm going to introduce to you are going to be also very varied from many, many different fields, okay? We're going to talk about painters, we're going to talk about different kind of personalities in the art world. And I think you will find this really entertaining, and I think it will be really cool to see the sort of parallels. Meaning, if you enjoy my content, you may be attracted to the same types of artists as me. Okay, and this is why I think it could be very interesting to see if you really connect with the artists that I introduce in the podcast. Okay, and then we're gonna have the ending segment. So right now we're kind of in the intro segment. I just want to explain in this podcast I'm gonna talk a bit about my history with art and how I came to do what I'm currently doing. Okay, I think this is a good topic for a first podcast episode. And again, this may not flow as fast as I want or as easily as I want, because it's the first episode. I'm still learning, so hopefully you will still enjoy this. Okay, so let's talk a bit about myself. So I've been drawing ever since I can really remember myself. I remember when I was 5 and I used to sit in my grandma and grandpa's porch, and I was actually painting and sketching and copying from a Dr. Seuss book. I was kind of looking at the characters and trying to, sometimes I would trace them, sometimes I would just look at them and draw them. And even back then I had a touch for it. Now today if I look at these sketches, they look terrible, but back then they looked awesome to me, and I was getting compliments for it. And basically what happened was I was kind of drawing on and off up until my military service. In my military service, it kind of consumed my entire life. I was also an officer, and I really devoted a lot of time to the army and to my work there. And so I basically just dropped it almost completely. Only in the last maybe 6 months to a year in my military service, I kind of got back to drawing. I started a blog. I started doing some things here and there. And really, after I finished there, I decided that I want to try. To make this art thing work. I want to take my knowledge, really hone it a little more, and make something out of it. Now, the thing that I think I was kind of naturally gifted in is actually teaching. So I decided to write a book and publish it myself. And this happened really when I just finished my military service. I remember really a month after I finished and I was released, I finished my first book, and it was just an amazing experience, and it started actually making me some money. Now, all of these circumstances I think put me in a very interesting place, because I wasn't like the typical kind of artist that always just dreamed of making what they want and have complete freedom. I actually think a lot about creating. I thought back then a lot about creating a business and making like real money out of it, and actually reaching and influencing a lot of people. So I wanted to make it as far as possible, and this connects to the next thing I want to talk about. I think one unique characteristic that I do have, because I did compare this to many other people and when talking with friends, and is that I don't have any boundaries in my mind. Well, we all have some, but I think I have significantly less boundaries than other people in terms of I really believe everything is possible. From the first moment I knew that I can take this art thing and make it and take it as far as I really want to, and reach potentially millions of people and make a lot of money and influence a lot of people and make people's lives better through the help of art and my personality and the knowledge that I kind of share. So this is another thing that I think a lot of people do have some problems with, really thinking big and really having a large ambition. And some people may not be interested in that kind of thing, and that's totally fine. But if you are the kind of person that you know deep inside that you are interested in it, there may be a disconnect, and maybe your actions don't necessarily map to that. So just one side tangent that I will talk about in the future. So basically what happened was, in the last year and a half, or almost 2 years now, I started painting in watercolor. And this was a really, really humbling experience. Because I found that I have to basically start from the beginning. I know nothing, and sketching and drawing was always kind of my comfort zone. And with watercolor, I just didn't know anything. It didn't come naturally to me. A lot of people that look at my paintings, they may think that it came naturally, but it didn't. If you look at the first paintings, you will see this. I was lucky in that I was pretty good at drawing, which is an important factor in painting. But it definitely wasn't everything, and so I had to learn everything. And I think with that experience, I got back into the students' shoes and really became even more empathetic to people that are learning and going through the process of improving their craft. So now basically I'm on my own journey of building a business around art, of getting my books out there, of getting my courses out there, selling a lot of products, trying to also reach as many people as possible on Instagram and on YouTube, because I decided if I want to be able to reach millions of people, I kind of have to start doing it on a day-to-day basis. So this is why I, for the longest time, for about 6 months or so, I've been publishing, or maybe it was a bit less than that, I was publishing a YouTube video per day, like one video a day, which was insane. Now I'm at 3 per week, which is also a lot. You can be fancy and say, oh, I want to get to millions of people, but if you don't at least start somewhere, you won't get to millions. So this is why I want to, for the most part, some people get really lucky and there's a bit of grace in their life and they have talent and somehow it happens. But for most of us, I think really it's starting from the bottom. And I decided that back when I had like 4,000 YouTube subscribers, I decided to, now I only have like 9,000, but almost 10,000, but still I decided back when I had 4,000 that I'm going to treat those like I have 400,000 or like I have 4 million subscribers, and make the channel the best channel I can. So anyway, here I am now, and this is basically all that I wanted to share with you in this podcast in the kind of free flow segment. So now we can move on to the more practical stuff. So I want to share with you one insight that may seem obvious to some, but if maybe you personally didn't think about it thoroughly enough. So basically, I found that whatever I want to achieve, I kind of have to look at the end, have the end in mind, and then reverse engineer on how I will get there. Okay, so today's practical kind of advice or tip for you, and I really don't want this to be necessarily a podcast that teaches, I want to entertain more, but I do want to share this with you, is that I want you to ask yourself, where do you want to eventually be? And really be honest with yourself. And this may require you to peel off a few layers of fear or of denial, because for many people, in their hearts, they may want to achieve even more than they think. Or they may want to achieve truly in their heart less than they think. Some people set crazy goals that may not be congruent with what they really want, just because they want to prove something to others or whatever. But whatever your motive is doesn't really matter. You truly know what you want. So I really would encourage you to ask yourself, where do you want to be? And then whatever that is, how you reverse engineer your way there. Now, there's another interesting point I wanna sort of mention quickly here. I like to divide this into what am I interested in becoming, in having, and in learning. So these kind of 3 categories, I think, are really a good way of breaking this down, because there are things you want to become, there are things you want to have, like materialistic, and there are things you want to learn. And if you can think about all of these and really figure out how you're going to get there, it can lead to some interesting insights, okay? So now let's move on to the artist corner. And in this episode, I want to introduce you to Alfred Sisley. Some of you may know him. He's just an amazing impressionist artist. I saw him in Musée d'Orsay in Paris, and I just loved his work. He belonged to the impressionistic movement of the second half of the 1800s, and really his work is amazing. It has this, and if you're like me and you like watercolor painting, you'll find that his work has this the qualities that are similar to watercolor. It has this great control over light and shadow, and it just makes you feel like you're there in the scene, which is amazing. Okay, so I really urge you to check him out, Alfred Sisley. Now, I do want to mention something important. Everything I talk about, I will summarize and conclude and write in text in the show notes. Okay, so basically this is on my website, and you will also find a link to Alfred Sisley's work. The URL is lironyan.com/EP1. I will spell it out for you, LIRONYAN.com/EP1, meaning episode 1. Okay, so EP1. And this and everything I talked about earlier is gonna be there. Okay, so make sure to check it out just for a more organized way of seeing everything we talked about. And really, again, I recommend you check out Alfred Sisley, just amazing work. So this brings us to the ending segment. So first, I really want to thank you for listening. If you made it to the end of this episode, I really enjoyed it, and I see myself recording many of these. Currently trying to think how I'm going to interlace them with my YouTube videos, because I have videos on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So maybe I'll put an episode on Wednesday, so new episodes on Wednesday, and then more of the week is covered. Okay, so you be sure to check out the next episodes, because there should already be some out. Don't forget to check out the show notes again at lironyan.com/EP1. I'll put a link there also to my YouTube channel and my Instagram. I think you'll really love these if you want to see kind of works in progress and painting processes and things like this. I'll also put there an email so that if you have any questions or comments or feedback about this podcast or about anything I do, or if you just want to consult on something, be sure to check it out there as well. I really hope you enjoyed this very first episode of my podcast, and I will see you soon in the next one.